It all started 10 years ago, when a mysterious fog suddenly appeared across the entire world. Countless terrifying monsters hidden inside this smoke. These cruel creatures began hunting people down without any mercy. With that, a true dark age for humanity began. Not even the most modern weapons and fighter jets could help. All human military power proved to be completely useless against them. The world was quickly taken over by chaos and destruction, and any normal person who stepped into the fog turned to stone until they perished. If this fog wasn't contained, it would spread across the entire planet. The threat grew more and more, rapidly consuming the continents, until finally, the entire Earth ended up covered in darkness. But in this apocalyptic world, beings chosen by God emerged, called bearers. Only warriors with exceptional skills could defeat the monsters of the fog. They needed to enter dungeons and clear out all the beasts to make the fog disappear. Because of this, these hunters became humanity's sole and fragile hope. During a battle in the city, a group tries to defeat a giant wolf to clear the fog. During the fight, the team's warrior ends up taking a devastating hit to the chest. His companions are shocked to see the severity of the injury, but they take advantage of the distraction to finish off the wolf with a powerful magic strike. The hunters celebrate the victory and say that using their teammate as bait was the best decision. They abandon the boy on the ground and leave without caring about his life. At that moment, someone else's consciousness begins to awaken inside that body. The young man wakes up completely confused while struggling to breathe. He only remembered working late and nodding off for a brief moment. But looking at his reflection, he realizes that face and body didn't belong to him. Suddenly, a terrible headache hits him with immense force. Strange memories of monsters and fog begin to flood his mind. He soon realizes he has reincarnated into another world and taken over the body of a bearer. From the memories, he understands he was discarded in a dungeon by his own team. The protagonist gets annoyed that he turned into a warrior who only serves as a human shield. But he gets a huge surprise when he sees a glowing screen floating in front of him. A reward system is activated, allowing him to choose his own prizes. He is in total shock because he had never heard of such an overpowered ability before. Excited, he concludes that this is the best possible reincarnation to get strong fast. Without wasting time, the young man quickly selects a rare sword and high-rank armor. The system congratulates him and displays the incredible stats of his new gear. He holds the sword, amazed by the quality of the item he just got. The young man realizes he obtained in one single go what would take others years to achieve. With this system by his side, he feels like nothing will stop his continuous growth. Leaving the dungeon, he reflects on the constant danger that exists in that world, and he decides to use his new ability to fight and survive as a true bearer. His biggest goal now is to level up more and more to become the strongest hunter. Walking through the city, he notices that the place looks a lot like his original world. The young man then catches a bus to go to his new home and try to plan his next steps. But the peaceful ride is interrupted when a thick fog appears on the avenue. The vehicle's alarm goes off immediately, warning of the deadly danger of the fog. The passengers panic, desperate over the chance of being attacked. Knowing that ordinary people wouldn't last long there, he decides to act to save everyone. The hunter stands up and shouts, asking everyone to stay calm in their seats. Meanwhile, the driver hits the gas, trying to drive through the fog quickly, but the boy spots a danger approaching and widens his eyes in fear. Suddenly, a powerful energy beam cuts through the entire side of the bus. The vehicle flips over, and the civilians despair since only bearers can fight. They lose hope, thinking there is no hero around. But to everyone's surprise, the young hunter stands up from the wreckage. He faces the destruction and speaks out loud, revealing that he is a bearer. One of the passengers cries tears of relief, begging him to handle the monsters. The man says backup is on the way, and the young man smiles, wanting to test his weapon. The civilian asks about his class, and is left in disbelief upon finding out he is level 1. The passenger's smile vanishes instantly at this disappointing revelation. Everyone goes into a frenzy, claiming he won't survive against a level 2 beast. In that world, the warrior class was considered the weakest and most useless of all. Ignoring the insults, the protagonist activates his combat mode with great confidence. He He raises his arm and immediately equips his new rank A magic armor. A powerful energy surrounds his body, leaving the young man ready for battle. At that moment, a giant rhinoceros monster emerges, shattering the asphalt. The hunter summons his newly acquired rank as sword, which glows intensely. He charges forward, knowing his new items grant him massive extra strength. The boy takes a massive leap and prepares a devastating strike against the monster. The beast tries to attack, but the magic blade hits its body with brutal power. The hunter slices the colossal creature right down the middle with extreme ease. Landing unharmed, he is certain that the new system will make him the strongest hunter. The young man looks back, quite proud of the damage caused by his sword. Right after, another monster emerges from the ground, but also receives a fatal strike. The fall creature is taken down instantly, spilling essence across the battlefield. The survivors are shocked to see a simple warrior winning so easily. While people admire him, the young man laments not getting extra rewards. He sheathes his sword and leaves, waving calmly to the rescued civilians. A girl watches the hero depart, thinking he would be an excellent recruit. The official rescue team finally arrives at the scene, wanting to understand everything. The heavy-set passenger explains stumblingly that it was a level 1 warrior. The girl remains intrigued, suspecting that the young man possessed a special item. In the late afternoon, the protagonist finally manages to get to his apartment, but he finds his door completely covered in spray paint with scary collection threats. An intimidating lone shark appears in the hallway, smiling to see that the boy didn't run away. The hunter searches his memories and discovers that the previous owner of the body owed a lot. This former kid had spent a fortune trying to buy items and failed. The protagonist clenches his fists in anger while the thug demands payment. The lone shark mocks him, saying the total debt reaches an absurd 5 million. The criminal warns that he will return in 3 days to take the apartment if he doesn't get paid. The young man steps inside with a sigh, knowing it's impossible to gather that amount quickly. He grabs his phone in hopes of finding some viable solution to the problem. Browsing a hunter app, he sees various buy and sell listings. The young man realizes he can use the system to get rare items and sell them on the internet. He flashes a confident smile, swearing that no debt will stop his journey. Sitting on the bed, he remembers that there are daily dungeons perfect for farming. His main plan now is to get much stronger and accumulate expensive treasures. But looking up the prices, he notices that rank S equipment is worth less than 700,000. The long-range weapons on the market wouldn't cover anywhere near his debt. Frustrated, he concludes that he will need to find another way to get the money fast. He remembers his last fight and realizes he has no more reason to feel so afraid. With his new gear, he understands he is more than ready to face level 3 dungeons. Highly determined, the boy taps his phone screen to make a decision. The hunter decides he will enter a dangerous zone the next day to pay off his debt as fast as possible. The next day, the young man goes to the entrance of a level 3 dungeon located in an abandoned area. He reflects that most of the population prefers to live in the city center since it's a safer region. While in the more remote and peripheral areas, the dungeons tend to be extremely dangerous. But he doesn't care about the risks because he knows the rewards in these places are much better. Walking through the area, he finds a blue portal indicating a dangerous level 2 cave. Suddenly, a group of hunters recognizes him from the day before and asks if he wants to be the team's shield. The protagonist rejects the offer on the spot, remembering they left him behind on the last mission. The team leader mocks him, saying a trash warrior like him should be washing dishes to survive. A girl on the team also humiliates the young man, doubting he can handle the pressure of a level 3 zone. So she ignores the taunts and walks away, remembering the miserable life the original owner of that body had. But now things would be very different to it with that new reward system by his side. The leader yells furiously, accusing the youth of being a gambling addict who would never pay off his massive debts. Hearing that hits the boy hard, and he throws a deadly look at the loudmouth hunter. He warns coldly that he will soon make that squad pay dearly for abandoning him. After threatening his former companions, the protagonist turns his back with a smile full of confidence. The members of that team are left confused and slightly intimidated by the young man's scary demeanor. They watch him leave, thinking it's completely normal to sacrifice a mere useless warrior during intense battles. Walking a bit further, Soshi finally arrives in front of the imposing portal of his desired level 3 dungeon. The system sends a glowing notification right away, asking if he truly wishes to start that dangerous challenge. Knowing he has no other choice, the hunter advances without fear and steps into the swirling blue magic. The young man crosses the portal's threshold and feels the strange energy of that new, mysterious environment. The scenery around him begins to materialize rapidly, revealing the details of that place. A floating screen indicates his new mission is to wipe out all the bandits in that immense ancient fortress. From afar, he spots some armed criminals guarding the camp entrance with giant swords. The young man notices that the atmosphere inside is quite different from the fog in the real world, looking like another historical dimension. His memories confirm that each dungeon has its own story where bears need to complete specific missions. Suddenly, a group of experienced hunters appear and comments that anyone there mustn't be a rookie. The leader of that team holds a firearm and asks everyone to reveal their classes and levels openly. The members show their credentials, proving they are level 3 marksmen, healers, and assassins. Soshi reveals he is a level 1 warrior, thinking his presence would complete the perfect group composition. But the other hunters are outraged, asking if a boy with such a low level wants to throw his life away. The team's healer yells furiously, accusing the young man of being dead weight, who will only get in everyone's way. Unshaken, the protagonist simply draws his sword, drawing the leader's attention to the quality of his gear. The marksman deduces he is a spoiled rich kid, and decides to accept his presence on the team just to test him. Soshi gives a strained smile, thinking that if he were truly rich, he wouldn't be there risking his life over debts. The leader starts assigning tasks, ordering the assassin to gather intel and the warrior to serve as a human shield. He taps Soshi on the chest, promising that the group's healer would keep him alive during the intense combat. But the protagonist pushes the marksman's hand away, warning that he doesn't plan to act like a fool and rush in blindly. He remembers that the old owner of that body lost his life being bait and swears he won't make the same stupid mistake in battle. The boy looks at his new companions and states that he will only take the front line if is absolutely necessary. A marksman threatens to leave him without heals if he runs from his duties, and the young man accepts the terms calmly. Suddenly, a local resident comes running desperately through the village streets toward the newly arrived hunters. The injured old man begs for help, warning that the violent criminals from the fortress are approaching fast. A massive army of cruel bandits rushes down the mountain with sharp weapons, ready to overwhelm everyone present. The enemies break through the wooden gates and invade the courtyard, completely surrounding the small group of hunters. The warrior observes his teammates' firearms and internally questions if bandits using only swords would really give them that much trouble. The bandits move quickly through the courtyard, dodging gunfire as they advance to attack. Soshi is surprised to notice that their reaction speed is just like that of the fog monsters. The team leader orders the marksmen to fire together to cut off the enemies' escape routes. A hail of bullets hits the ground, pinning down the criminals trying to get close. The protagonist notices that the opponents are very agile, but have very weak defense. One of the bandits takes a huge leap and attacks the healer, who defends herself with a magic shield. The enemy prepares a heavy strike from above, while the girl begs for help. But Soshi quickly appears in front of her and blocks the brutal attack using his new sword. The impact of the block generates a bright flash, showing the power of the young man's equipment. The hunter shoves the criminal away with extreme ease and massive confidence. The opponent stumbles back, trying to comprehend the absurd strength of that rookie warrior. The bandit begins to break into a cold sweat, completely confused by the unexpected situation. His eyes widen in dread as he senses the impending danger. In the blink of an eye, Soshi delivers a devastating strike and takes down the enemy instantly. The one-eyed marksman smiles, seeing that the rookie won thanks to the absurd power of the rank S sword. In the middle of the courtyard, the young man realizes he has ended up completely surrounded by the rest of the gang. Without showing any fear, he raises his weapon and tells them all to attack at once to get this over with. Suddenly, the barrel of a firearm appears, pointing directly toward the center of the commotion. A powerful shot cuts through the air, grazing right past the warrior's face. The protagonist is startled to feel the small scratch on his cheek and tries to process what happened. Several other shots start raining down in his direction, while the criminals are also startled. His own marksman teammates are firing nonstop into the entire crowd. The young man is outraged to notice that his team is aiming their attacks directly at him. The group leader flashes a malicious smile while continuing to fire without a shred of mercy. The shots hit the boy directly, but the system blocks the damage, only reducing his gear durability. The youth concludes he would be finished without his magic armor and notes how warriors easily become targets. He dodges the volley of bullets and shouts furiously, asking what on earth they think they are doing. One of the marksmen mocks him, saying the kid stepped into the line of fire on his own accord. Soshi plants his feet firmly on the ground, realizing that this team doesn't care about his life at all. Filled with rage, he promises he will show them how awful it feels to be used as a human shield. Soshi warns his teammate that he is about to make him feel exactly what it is like to be used as a human shield. Suddenly, an explosion goes off right behind the warrior, but he does not seem to care about the noise at all. Out of all that dust, a colossal and terrifying warrior emerges, holding heavy chains. The system immediately alerts the team that their new mission is to defeat the terrible fortress boss. The other hunters panic and order the warrior to strike that beast as quickly as possible. Soshi looks at the massive size of the monster without showing any sign of fear or worry about the fight. While the group loses their cool, the sharpshooters begin activating their skills to try and help out. They fire several energy attacks that score direct hits on the giant monster's chest. However, the strikes seem to cause no real damage at all and only manage to make the opponent angry. Soshi quickly realizes that the situation here is much more dangerous than he initially thought. The giant takes a heavy step, cracking the ground and frightening the hunters, who were trying to back away. Next, the colossal creature makes an impressive leap, blocking out the sunlight in the blue sky. The monster comes crashing down, taking out the hunter in the blue cape and making a huge mess everywhere. Soshi realizes that his companion's reckless and foolish actions only serve to make the enemy furious. Even though he is badly hurt, the warrior in the blue cape tries to stand back up in front of the beast. The monster charges to run the young man down, and he starts running away in a panic, crying out for divine help. The injured man runs over to Soshi, begging him to distract the monster while he recovers from the attack. Soshi sees right through his true intentions, but decides it is time to teach them what real fear feels like. The protagonist pretends to go along with the plan and confidently steps into the fight while the other guy celebrates. He collides directly with the monster and uses his glowing sword to block the beast's powerful strike. The young man realizes that even though he is using an incredible rank S weapon, he cannot take down the opponent right away. He concludes that he will need to find a specific weakness if he wants to defeat that iron giant. The injured companion shouts from afar, ordering Soshi to keep holding the creature in that exact spot. The monster prepares to deliver another devastating attack, while Soshi stares back with a very sarcastic look. A violent punch destroys the ground, creating a massive cloud of smoke and dust all over the combat area. The impact throws the toxic warrior far away, making him cry out as he hits the ground completely broken. Just then, a system message pops up, warning that the beast's attention is now fully focused on the hero. Soshi gets ready to act, knowing that the giant monster is charging toward him in a complete rage. The hunter dodges the crushing attack, leaping away with agility as the giant's fist cracks the pavement. He flies through the air in an incredible maneuver while the system alert keeps flashing on his screen. Saoshi starts running and decides it is the perfect moment to lead the monster right back to his teammates. Seeing the boss running toward him, the companion screams in desperation, begging him not to run over there. The monster strikes near them, causing an explosion while the man yells at the hero to get away from there. The young man keeps dodging spectacularly, keeping the enemy's attention completely locked onto him. He runs right past his teammates, who end up getting struck by the debris from the beast's attacks. The giant strikes with immense force, tossing the lazy hunter through the air in an extremely violent and brutal way. The man hits the ground shaking with fear, having lost a limb, and realizes things have gone completely downhill for him. Saoshi watches the scene from afar with total calmness and indifference, knowing that karma has finally caught up. The injured man yells in anger, accusing the protagonist of setting a deadly trap to finish him off. Saoshi replies that now he can understand the true value of a warrior who risks his life for others. The man tries to crawl away, begging for rescue, while the fortress boss pursues him without any rush. Seeing the injured man approaching, the group's mage panics and screams at him to stay away. She decides to use a magic scroll that creates a powerful energy cage capable of trapping any monster. The hero watches his teammates desperate move closely to see how the magical barrier holds up. The purple light cage rises from the ground, trapping the giant monster and the injured companion inside together. Terrified, the man begins to scream in absolute horror, begging his teammates to get him out of that prison of light. He pounds on the barrier with all the strength he has left while the creature approaches right behind him. Crying heavily, he begs them to hold on and not abandon him in the cage with that cruel monster. The monster grabs the man by the neck while the system screen displays the final details of its victim. The screen goes red, indicating that the selfish hunter has finally been taken out after being crushed by the enemy. The mage is left horrified, and the young man notes that they did not hesitate to betray their own ally just to survive. Putting the shock aside, the young man focuses on his single true objective, defeating the big boss. The others say it is foolish to fight alone, but he steps forward confidently, claiming he knows exactly what to do. So she draws his imposing magic sword with a smile and says they will only know the outcome if they try fighting together. The giant remains locked in the cage, while the system clock starts a 5-second countdown. The young man reasons that even a strong boss would not make it out unscathed from so many combined attacks and high-rank weapons. As time ticks away, the imposing villain prepares to break free from that barrier with even more fury. The young hunter remembers that every dungeon ever created has a specific method to be cleared and conquered. With only 1 second left before the containment ends, he focuses entirely on finding the perfect answer. The cage shatters completely, and the furious giant breaks free, destroying everything around him with massive force and a loud crash. Without wasting a moment, Saoshi charges toward the enemy, delivering a swift strike with his powerful sword of light. A huge explosion of dust and energy cuts through the air, leaving the two surviving hunters completely stunned by the sight. The massive fortress boss falls defeated to the ground, while Saoshi remains standing, showing his absolute dominance. The weapon's magical blade delivers a fatal cut to the opponent, scattering dark energy across the entire battlefield. The young man sheathes his sword with complete calmness, showing that the difficult clash was handled masterfully. The system confirms the boss's defeat and rewards the warrior with a valuable amount of experience points. Saoshi smiles with satisfaction upon noticing that his level went up, celebrating that his risky gamble paid off big time. He understands that even powerful defenses can be easily overcome when you strike the perfect weak point. The system congratulates the hunter on clearing the dungeon and begins preparing the major mission rewards. The mage walks over slowly and gets the hero's attention, trying to speak with him in a very friendly manner. She suggests that he split the prizes since her cage helped trap the boss at a crucial moment in the fight. The warrior responds very coldly, reminding her that she tried to use him as bait and that she should not push her luck. Frightened by the young man's intimidating tone, the girl decides to give up on the treasures and leave immediately. Saoshi, however, grips the handle of his sword sword and firmly orders the two survivors to stop walking. They tremble with fear, warning him that hunters who attack teammates without a reason face severe punishment under the law. The young man smiles and says they would be gone without his help, so they should at least show some gratitude for their lives. The girl breaks into a cold sweat, trembling with fears as she stammers a sincere thank you to try and calm the warrior down. The other teammate also bows and thanks him, incredibly relieved not to be targeted by the young man, who proved to be completely ruthless. The two survivors flee the area running, while the protagonist watches them run away, still holding his weapon. The prize selection system activates, allowing the hunter to choose 3 special items from the chests. A list of legendary technique books appears floating around him, glowing with various magical colors. So she is fascinated to see that he can easily obtain extremely rare SS rank skills. He reviews the available techniques and notices that one of the books allows him to train his skills while sleeping. The young man flashes a confident smile, realizing that even though it is a different class, he can still learn everything. He selects a speed technique, remembering the danger he faced when being chased by that massive opponent. Since one of the rare skills does not match his class, he decides he will sell it to make a nice profit. With such power in his hands, the young man feels he can change the course of the whole world, not just pay off his bills. Determined, the hunter promises to clear every dungeon he comes across and take every single valuable treasure. So she smiles confidently, knowing that his journey to change the world and stand out has only just begun. Back in reality, he focuses on clearing his debt and uses his phone to check the market value of the skills. He analyzes the high prices on the app, hoping to rake in a handsome fortune if he can attract buyers. Suddenly, his device vibrates, and the young man happily realizes he has already received an interesting offer for his item. The hero celebrates as he closes the sale of one of the rare technique books for over 1 million virtual coins. Walking down the alley, he decides that tonight will be the perfect night to test out his sleep training technique. The hours pass quickly, and a peaceful night falls over the massive residential buildings of the modern city. The young man lies down comfortably on his sofa at home, while a blue aura begins to envelop his sleeping body. The system's sleep technique activates successfully, transporting Soshi's mind to a training field. He opens his eyes and notices that the training ground inside his own mind is completely empty and mysterious. He realizes his senses are sharper than ever, even though his body feels exactly the same as it does in the waking world. Suddenly, a rift of blue energy opens up in space, and the warrior quickly turns around, asking who is there. All of a sudden, a clone of himself equipped in combat armor appears before him with orders to defeat the enemy. The warrior's clone leaps to deliver a swift aerial strike, but the real Saoshi dodges it with total ease. The two swords clash, generating intense sparks in the space as Soshi tests his strength against his own reflection. The opponent delivers an extremely fast strike, forcing the young man to move with agility to avoid being hit. Soshi flashes an excited smile and realizes that facing himself with such intensity can actually be quite fun. The precise and decisive movement, he delivers a clean strike that cuts the armored opponent in half without hesitation. He concludes that to become a truly powerful hunter, he will need to surpass his very own limits. Suddenly, the system generates a new warning on the screen, and another clone appears on the spot, ready to start fighting. More copies begin to pop up around him, showing that this mental challenge is going to be way more exhausting than it seemed. Surrounded by multiple versions of himself, Soshi prepares to fight them all at once without showing any fear. The hero points his weapon intimidatingly and boldly invites all the clones to attack him together. The next morning, at the Bureau's Combat Command Center, officials gather around a large hologram. The Bureau chief comments on the mysterious monster invasions that have been occurring across the city over the last few months. The director rants that elite forces have been prevented from clearing dungeons multiple times by an enemy group. He asks the Bureau's most experienced members if anyone has an efficient strategy to counter this threat. A young agent enters the room with a tablet, stating she has obtained crucial information about a powerful new hunter. The chief plays it down, saying it is not unusual for ordinary hunters to take down a few standard creatures in the mist. The girl explains that they captured an enemy who confirmed that not even the rival leader anticipated this hero's existence. She states with great determination that an unexpected event like this had never happened before since the start of the crisis. The director realizes that this mysterious young man could be the key to shattering the villain's powerful foresight ability. The agent reveals that she has already started a thorough search of all transit routes in that region to track him down. She strongly hopes they can locate this powerful new hunter as quickly as possible to assist in the war effort. The following day, the protagonist wakes up in his bed, yawning heavily with his body completely worn out from the training. He walks down the street grumbling that fighting hundreds of copies of himself all night is incredibly exhausting. As he walks, he gets curious to know just how much his nighttime efforts helped improve his skills. Upon checking the status panel, the young man is met with a considerable increase in his basic swordsmanship skill level. He is amazed to see that he managed to significantly improve his sword handling in just a single night. The young man yawns, stretching his body, and concludes that training while sleeping is an extremely broken and useful feature. So she walks to the dark alley, where he agreed to meet the buyer interested in his valuable magical item. He locates the muscular man sitting down, waiting for the delivery at the agreed trading spot. The man stands up imposingly and approaches with heavy steps, sizing up the young warrior from head to toe. The big guy asks roughly if he is truly the seller of the legendary SS rank technique book. The boy pulls the glowing book from his magical inventory, showing he has exactly what the buyer wanted. The buyer holds out his hand anxiously, proposing to make an immediate trade of the money for the valuable techniques. He mocks the young man's class, commenting that a simple level 2 warrior must have gotten incredibly lucky to find that. The system executes the financial transfer, splitting the buyer's coin balance with the protagonist's account. So she notices the trick and complains angrily, pointing out that the sent amount is 400,000 coins below what was agreed. The thug laughs and pulls out a massive firearm, pointing it at the hero's head while shouting arrogant insults. The criminal demands that he hand over the book right now, without complaining, while keeping the gun pressed against his forehead. A huge explosion of smoke happens in the alley, with a loud bang echoing violently through all the neighboring buildings. Saoshi reemerges holding the brute by the neck with just one hand and says he absolutely hates being called weak. He warns menacingly that even though he is only at level 2, he can easily defeat higher-level criminals. The man almost chokes and desperately begs for his life, promising he will never disrespect warriors again. The protagonist lets go of the cheater's neck, leaving him to drop to his knees on the asphalt, coughing heavily for air. So she opens his arms and says with a laugh that it was just a joke, demanding that he pay the rest of the debt right now. The young man checks the coins received and smiles, as he charged an extra fee for emotional distress on top of the original price. He drops the book on the ground casually, stating that his business dealings are based purely on mutual trust. The man cries tears of relief, thanking the hero and saying that with that special technique, he can overcome the new disaster. Intrigued, Soshi stops walking and asks what it is about, sensing a great opportunity to make a lot of money. The big guy flashes an excited smile, replying that this topic is the hottest thing among hunters right now. The man explains that the challenge for beginners consists of facing fear zombies and surviving for 3 whole days. He warns that the casualty rate is absurd, but guarantees that the final rewards are greater than any other. So she becomes very interested in the rare prizes and immediately demands to know where the entrance portal to the disaster is. The man hesitates, saying that a level 2 rookie attempting to enter a level 5 zone with such low survival odds is pure madness. The young man smiles with absolute confidence and states that difficult dungeons are the only ones that drop treasures above S rank. They arrive at the dark alley, where an imposing blue portal of magical energy glows, surrounded by other warriors from the team. So she walks up to the entrance of the blue energy portal, focused on the dangerous survival journey that awaits him. The other hunters on the team look at the young man in surprise to see a simple warrior joining a high-rank mission. The system displays a warning that the level 5 dungeon is a dangerous disaster zone where cruel zombies rule the entire city. The group leader smiles mockingly and alerts everyone that the team is ready to begin the grand and terrifying mission. The protagonist is teleported to the top of a massive, ruined skyscraper, surrounded by abandoned and destroyed buildings. The system's screen recommends that the young man locate the other separated hunters, as acting in a group would increase survival odds. Shaoxi equips his magic armor invisibly, concluding that he does not need weak companions, slowing down his plans. Ignoring the system's instructions, the hunter decides to go solo, focusing only on getting stronger and paying off his debts. Along the way, he finds an abandoned convenience store and decides to go inside to stock up on useful supplies for the journey. The hunter explores the dusty shelves of the establishment, looking for any provisions that might help him endure. So she gathers drinks and bandages and smiles upon finding his favorite instant ramen completely intact among the debris. Suddenly, the man with dreadlocks bursts into the place, shattering the windows with a shotgun in hand and a panicked look. The protagonist turns around, surprised and startled by the sudden noise, trying to understand what is happening outside. A violent horde of hungry zombies comes charging in right behind the man, who cries out for immediate rescue. The monsters surround the entrance of the establishment, blocking any chance of an easy escape for the two hunters inside. Quickly, Shaoxi summons his S-rank magic sword, which glows intensely with blue light, ready to start clearing them out. The warrior advances masterfully, slicing through the zombies trying to grab him and carving a path through the fierce horde. He sighs and jokingly complains that trouble always seems to find his clumsy partner before anyone else. The partner begs the protagonist to cover his back while he tries to reload his long-range weapon. Shaoxi runs toward the monsters with his sharp blade, preparing a devastating strike to protect his new ally. With incredibly fast movements, he cuts several enemies in half, creating a true blue defensive barrier. The young man notes with concern that the flow of zombies seems endless, and that new creatures keep pouring into the store. The warrior suspects that the sound of bodies hitting the ground and the scent of conflict are drawing even more undead to the area. Suddenly, a high-pitched and extremely annoying sound begins to echo through the environment, catching the young hunter's attention. He focuses his gaze and tries to identify where that mysterious sound frequency attracting the opponents is coming from. Deep within the horde, he notices a distinct zombie emitting circular sound waves directly from its ribcage. The protagonist deduces that this bizarre creature is the beacon attracting and controlling the other zombies in the area. So she realizes that even with his great speed, a massive horde has already blocked the only exit from that establishment. He decides that the only viable alternative for survival is to eliminate the noisy zombie as quickly as possible. The young man asks his companion to fire continuously to focus all the undead's attention onto him. The partner panics, replying that he is only a long-range shooter and cannot serve as loud bait. Shaoxi looks at him seriously, asking for just 5 seconds of trust so he can execute his plan. The man fearfully accepts while the hero prepares himself, analyzing the status panel of his physical attributes. So she mentally requests the system to allocate his extra point into the agility stat to increase his speed. With his status properly updated, the warrior makes a spectacular leap, agilely clearing the top of the zombies. While his teammate shoots to draw the horde's attention, Shaoxi flies toward his true target. He uses his new speed to bypass the blockade and advance toward the zombie commanding the horde. The hunter descends from above, aiming his magical blade directly at the head of that group's noisy leader. With a single surgical strike, the monster emitting the sound is sliced in half, cutting off the annoying frequency. The protagonist lands with absolute style on the ground, celebrating that his risky plan worked out with great success. Suddenly, the eyes of all the surrounding zombies begin to glow with an intense red color full of fury and hatred. The system displays a prominent warning that the zombie master has been defeated, causing all creatures to go into a frenzy. He notices the enemy's increased speed attributes and understands that the creature truly was the leader. An enraged beast with sharp claws leaps toward the young man, ready to deliver a brutal and merciless attack. So she delivers a precise sword strike, cutting down the first furious monster with great speed and skill. The young man coldly analyzes the combat situation, looking to chart the best route to escape the imminent danger. He notices that the undead's defense has increased significantly and that he might not be able to wipe them all out easily. However, seeing that the number of enemies has stopped growing, the hero decides to push through with a direct attack. The young man grips his weapon with determination, vowing to overcome every obstacle to become the strongest. With a powerful battle cry, he prepares to charge full force against the enraged horde of opponents. From afar, the marksman companion keeps firing desperately, warning that he is very close to his physical limit. So she pauses his run for a brief moment as he hears his injured partner's desperate plea for help. Protagonist reflects on whether it is truly worth risking his life for a stranger in a world where only the strong survive. Even while surrounded by sharp claws, the man cries out that he fully trusts the young warrior's massive power and strength. A creature tries to bite the alley's neck, but he holds it off bravely, using his firearm to block the dangerous strike. The protagonist sighs in annoyance, commenting aloud that this companion really is a handful on missions. But he ends up giving in to the request and decides to step into the fight so his teammate doesn't get eaten right there. Saoshi activates a spectacular golden aura, promising he will not let his title as the strongest warrior be tarnished. The zombies with sharp claws observe the immense amount of energy released by the hero and back off slightly, startled. The warrior focuses his vision and prepares a devastating attack with relentless determination to wipe out the beasts. With a single swift movement, he cuts the first monster in half, spilling dark fluids all over the combat area. The injured partner watches the scene, highly impressed by the ease of it, and celebrates the absurd strength shown by the boy. Suddenly, the hero grabs his companion by the collar of his shirt, leaving the man completely confused by the action. Saoshi leaps high, carrying his partner in his arms to fly right over the dangerous barrier of undead. The man screams and cries in utter terror as he sees himself floating right above the sharp claws of the hungry monsters. The young man complains about his companion's weight, feeling that this extra effort burned more physical energy than expected. Without losing any time, he activates his maximum speed skill once again to ensure a quick and successful escape. So she runs spectacularly, stepping on the enemy's heads and bypassing the deadly encirclement with immense ease. They finally manage to escape the wild horde and pull over on a deserted street to catch their breath after the tense escape. The protagonist proudly states that he is ready to overcome any danger or difficulty that comes his way. The two keep walking down the bleak streets of the ruined city, searching for a safe spot to rest for a bit. The partner admits he was terrified before entering the dungeon, but confesses that the challenge doesn't seem so bad now. Suddenly, the desperate cries for help from another warrior running down the street catch the hunter duo's attention. A colossal and terrifying creature comes leaping down from the top of one of the ruined buildings with immense agility and rage. The young man, injured and covered in red, begs for help, desperately reaching his hand out toward the protagonists. But the terrible monster crashes down hard on the victim, brutally crushing the poor young man right in front of Sashi. The protagonist is left completely shocked and breaking into a cold sweat, noticing the sheer size and crushing power of that bizarre beast. Without caring about the doe's presence, the zombie king leaps away once more, quickly vanishing among the ruins. Soshi concludes with relief that they were not the primary target of the attack and questions why the monster left. The hero silently observes the spot where the poor youth ended up losing his life in such a tragic and brutal way. Later on, they meet up with the rest of the hunter group, who managed to make it through the big monster's attack unscathed. The group's marksman wearing sunglasses approaches, commenting that they were extremely lucky to survive the massacre. Saoshi and his partner listen in absolute silence to the worrying words of the experienced hunter leading the group. The marksman explains that ordinary zombies are easy to handle, but that giant creature they saw is the real danger there. He reveals that the zombie king usually hunts during the day's transition periods, and that the only safe haven is a sealed bunker. The two follow the warrior into an underground facility while analyzing the available support items. They enter the fortified shelter, finding a spacious area with tables and couches to ensure the group's rest. On the shelter's supply screen, the hunters notice the price list for bottled water, medicine, and food rations. Saoshi finds the panel odd and questions why bottled water is the most expensive resource available for purchase there. The young man reaches his hand out toward a faucet, concludes that clean water must be the rarest resource in this place. All of a sudden, an elderly resident of the shelter appears, yelling hurriedly for the young man to not dare touch the fixtures. The old man warns harshly that the water from the local pipes is contaminated and is unfit for human consumption. Saoshi accepts the warning but notices that the reactions of the people in that shelter seem strangely sluggish and suspicious. At that exact moment, sinister black roots begin to grow out from inside the sink drain, surprising everyone present. Asamura Taku leads the point rankings, while the panel shows the limited stock of bottled water. The survivors debate how they need to spend their hard-earned points to buy food and medicine. One hunter decides to spend his points to buy several bottles of water after wearing himself out in physical combat. The others ridicule the young man, saying that spending so many points at once is madness that could get him taken out. The partner with dreadlocks tries to defend him, stating with conviction that the young warrior is extremely strong. The leader smiles mockingly and decides that the strong young man will be responsible for guarding the shelter tonight. The protagonist questions whether they shouldn't be completely safe inside that underground shelter. He explains that monsters increase at night and that the zombie king will get in if they don't clear the horde. With a malicious smile, the man emphasizes the need to have a guard outside to hold off the monsters. The leader walks away cynically, wishing the warrior good luck in trying to survive the night's dangers. The darkness of the night falls over the ruined city, and an absurd number of monsters takes over all the streets. Alone in the corridor, the young warrior easily eliminates several opponents trying to breach the facility. The leader in sunglasses appears and warns that he is going out to look for water since he doesn't have enough points. The other hunter smiles and reveals that the story was a lie because the zombie king always hunts whoever has the most points. Partner with dreadlocks realizes they were set up while the traitors laugh at the cowardly trap. The protagonist understands that they used him to farm points and turn him into the zombie king's primary target. He becomes furious at the betrayal and vows that those opportunists will bitterly regret using him as bait. In the middle of the night, a system message alerts him that the young man's training skill has risen to level 2. Suddenly, a deafening noise coming from one of the building's windows completely breaks the silence of the dark night. The traitors completely panic upon realizing that the terrible zombie king is very close to breaching the shelter. They despair as they notice that one of their very own companions ended up infected and turned into a monster. The hunters look up fearfully at the ceiling of the room, which begins to shake violently from a thunderous impact. The ceiling collapses entirely, scattering massive concrete blocks and heavy smoke all over the underground shelter. The colossal zombie king emerges imposingly from the shadows, terrifying everyone with its massive, monstrous presence. The treacherous leader celebrates, believing that the giant monster came solely to eliminate the marked protagonist. But in a fraction of a second, the beast strikes brutally, taking off the leader's head in a splash of dark fluids. The monster begins to consume the victim, while the other survivors scream in confusion, failing to understand the situation. The hero remembers that the monster ignored him before, proving that points didn't matter, but rather the black roots in the bodies. The young man points to the dark roots and warns the other hunters that they understood the rules completely wrong. He explains that the zombie king's true target has absolutely nothing to do with whoever accumulated the most points. With determination, the youth reveals that the monster ruthlessly hunts down anyone who has used the tap water. The giant monster lets out a terrifying roar, baring its sharp fangs, ready to devour its next prey. The protagonist ignores the creature behind him and repeats the warning that the contaminated water is what attracts the furious beast. The remaining hunters are left completely confused, unable to comprehend the protagonist's surprising explanation. The young man explains that everyone works works hard to earn points to buy clean water and avoid the local contamination. But when points run out, people use the faucet without knowing that doing so turns them into easy targets for the king. The terrible creature focuses its glowing red eyes directly toward the surviving hunters. The young man draws his sharp sword, determined to cut down the strange black roots spreading through the facility. With a precise and powerful stroke of his blade, he destroys the dark offshoots that were coming out of the piping. The giant monster flies into a total rage upon seeing the roots destroyed and charges at the hero with extreme speed. Beast's colossal fist hits the ground hard, destroying the floor, while the young hunter agilely dodges out of the way. The protagonist orders everyone to run out of there immediately because the powerful zombie king has gone completely wild. He tells the group to get away from the contaminated water and prepares to hold off the creature alone by drawing its attention. The gigantic opponent leaps fiercely toward the young warrior, who stands firm to contain the brutal advance. The hero smiles as he successfully lures the monster into a narrow corridor, which is going to heavily limit its movements. In the blink of an eye, the two trade violent attacks, and the blades leave glowing trails of energy through the air. The protagonist's metal sword collides against the beast's durable hide, generating intense sparks in the corridor. The zombie king delivers a devastating claw strike, forcing the young man to back up quickly to avoid being torn apart. The warrior slides back on the corridor floor, keeping his combat stance firm and focused on the terrible enemy. He admits to himself that the monster's physical strength is insane and that winning with just a sword will be no easy task. The young man realizes he needs to lure the monster into an even tighter space if he wants to gain any sort of advantage. The zombie king lets out a furious roar as it pursues the young hunter through the narrow underground path. With determination, he continues to back up slowly to draw the massive opponent deeper into his plan. The monster delivers a violent punch against the wall, but the hero dodges with precision, avoiding the falling stone pieces. He agilely ducks under the attack and asserts that tough moments are exactly when a warrior shines. The protagonist channels his energy and delivers a direct sword strike against the colossal creature's face. The terrible creature merely stares back menacingly, showing absolutely no concern regarding the attack. The opponent blocks the sharp blade directly with its iron fist, causing a bit of dark fluid to splatter. The warrior is left shocked to notice that his swift strike was easily anticipated and blocked by the giant enemy. Sensing that the situation has become extremely dangerous, the young man decides to pull back quickly to reevaluate his plan. He slips through a heavy metal door, deciding to use the dark room to temporarily hide from the beast. The young man gets confused upon noticing that the beast, which was chasing him closely, suddenly lost his trail entirely inside. He looks around the abandoned storage area and begins analyzing the clues around him to uncover the opponent's secret. Quietly, the protagonist walks through the dark room, trying to figure out how the monster manages to find him so fast. Suddenly, the zombie king smashes through the wall right behind the hero, making him spin around in surprise from the sudden impact. He dodges the debris and wonders how the enemy managed to pinpoint him, even while outside its direct line of sight. Right then, a common red-eyed zombie leaps from the ceiling toward the young man, trying to catch him off guard. Without hesitating, the warrior executes a quick sword slash, eliminating the flying enemy cleanly and very precisely. Observing the creature's behavior, the young man finally understands that the zombie king's eyesight is extremely poor. He realizes that the other smaller monsters serve as the king's actual eyes, indicating his exact position. Knowing this, the young warrior decides that his first step will be to wipe out all the smaller zombies in that area. The hero charges like lightning, slicing down the smaller creatures with devastating blows from his brilliant magic sword. The giant monster lets out a roar of frustration upon realizing it is losing its sensory connection to the area. With a confident smile, the young man confirms that without the smaller monsters to guide it, the massive beast is totally blind. As the fight drags on, the sun begins to rise on the horizon, painting the ruined buildings with an orange hue. The protagonist notices that the building's pipes are leaking a lot of water and starts coming up with a new battle strategy. From afar, his companions keep running desperately through the flooded corridors to try and escape the danger. One of the hunters collapses, exhausted into the contaminated water, lacking the strength to keep fleeing with the rest of his peers. The man begins to cough up dark fluid, realizing that the water's infection has finally turned him into a new zombie. The youth deduces that the dungeon didn't naturally have monsters, and that they are all spawning because of the building's contaminated sewage. He concludes that the high price of water in the system's shop serves precisely to force hunters into getting infected. The hero yells out, asking his partner if the electrical power for the entire building is still running normally. Upon receiving a positive answer, he flashes a confident smile, knowing exactly how to defeat the terrible zombie king. He approaches the elevator shaft, reasoning that the cable system must be operational due to the active power. With the plan set, the young warrior starts running at high speed, drawing the monster horde right behind him. He knows the king merely follows the other creatures and decides he needs to isolate it directly inside the elevator. The frightened hunter grabs the protagonist's arm, accusing the young man of putting everyone's lives in extreme danger. The young man tells the coward to shut up and warns that if he wants to survive, he should stay as far away from that sewage as possible. Ignoring the group's protests, the hero runs toward the elevator while the monster's giant shadow approaches. With agility, the young man reaches out and presses the button on the metal panel to call the elevator car to the floor. The colossal creature reemerges from the corridor shadows, leaping with its sharp claws toward the warrior. The hero remains standing in absolute silence, facing the opponent's deadly advance without showing any sign of fear. The giant's sharp claws strike the metal wall of the corridor, leaving deep gashes with a violent noise. The young man manages to slide inside the cab right at the moment the heavy steel doors begin to close. He uses his sharp sword to pierce the metal ceiling, opening a quick escape route to the top of the steel elevator car. Now positioned on top of the elevator, the young warrior focuses his vision and announces that it is the perfect time to counterattack. The young man watches the furious beast scale the dark elevator shaft, coming straight toward him to attack. The hero smiles victoriously, realizing that his giant opponent took the bait and entered right where he intended. He plans to use the narrow space between the cab and the concrete wall to hide from the beast's field of vision. With precise movements, the young man slides through the small side gap, initiating the final phase of his combat plan. The young man holds on tightly to the edge of the metal structure to avoid plunging down the dark shaft. He realizes he needs to climb as fast as possible to avoid being caught by the monster pursuing him. The youth hesitates for a moment, weighing whether he should hide at the front or the back of the elevator. Suddenly, he gets an excellent idea upon hearing a strange snap coming from the cab's steel cables. He notices that the elevator is held up by a single worn cable and decides to use that to destabilize the opponent. The young man throws a rock to make noise in the area and draw the blind enemy right into his trap. The gigantic beast hears the noise and leaps full force toward the top of the elevator's metal frame. The opponent's massive foot strikes the roof of the cab, generating a heavy impact that makes the entire structure shake. From above, the hero watches the creature land exactly where he planned, maintaining his calm combat stance. Without wasting time, he readies his glowing blade to deliver the final strike against the cab's support. With a precise cut, the steel cable snaps, and the elevator plunges into the abyss, taking the giant monster down with it. However, the protagonist decides to leap right after it, delivering a devastating aerial attack with his powerful sword of light. The sharp blade slices the beast's chest as they fall, drawing a deafening cry of pain from the enemy. The young man quickly extends his arm and grabs a steel bar to break his fall in spectacular fashion. The hero lands smoothly on the ground while observing the zombie king's body completely crushed over the wreckage. Suddenly, a violent spasm causes the creature to try and move again, catching the warrior's attention. Determined to finalize the combat, he leaps once more with his weapon raised, promising to put an end to this for good. With a focused and relentless gaze, the young man announces the end of the fight as he delivers a surgical strike to the beast. The powerful energy attack cuts the opponent's body in half, scattering dark residues all over the steel shaft. Giant monsters' pieces fall undone on the ground while the dark energy begins to dissipate from the environment. The young hunter sheathes his weapon calmly and breathes a sigh of relief upon confirming his victory in the clash. The surviving companions run toward him, shouting in awe at the heroic feat performed by the strong young man. However, the protagonist finds it strange that the dungeon clearance message hasn't appeared on his screen yet. He looks up with concern upon hearing a strange sound of rushing water, echoing through the structure once more. Suddenly, a massive flash flood brings new red-eyed zombies that begin plunging down from the upper pipes. The young man is left perplexed to notice that the undead threat is far from over, even with the fall of their leader. The other hunters fall into despair upon seeing that the creatures keep rising from that contaminated water. A new opponent crawls furiously through the accumulated water, reaching its claws out toward the group of survivors. The protagonist understands that defeating the zombie king was actually never the main objective of that dungeon. He realizes that the sewage water, the dark roots, and the zombies are all connected by a single hidden source. The young man asserts with certainty that the true root of the problem is whatever is contaminating the entire local sewage network. He advances, slicing the enemies that pop up, and decides to follow the piping to the heart of that underground chamber. With every step, his feet tread upon a frightening number of red roots, covering the entire floor of the room. Upon entering the great chamber, he faces a bizarre scene where the walls and ceiling are overtaken by red veins. The young man analyzes the nest seriously and confirms that this bizarre location is truly the center of the entire infection. Before him emerges a colossal monster of red flesh, featuring dozens of glowing eyes and sharp teeth along the walls. Pointing at the immense target, the young warrior declares with conviction that he will clear this dungeon once and for all. The nest begins to pulse violently while the young man prepares to face the true master of the disaster. Gigantic red tentacles attack fiercely, but the hunter leaps with agility, dodging masterfully. Realizing he is surrounded on all sides, he focuses on finding an opening to manage to get close to the core. The hero executes an acrobatic leap over the blood vines, keeping his sword ready to deliver a counterattack. The flesh enemy delivers several consecutive strikes to try and trap the young warrior's movements on the ground. Unfortunately, a swift red root manages to wrap itself tightly around the young man's ankle, blocking his dodge. Upside down, the warrior is hurled through the air, while several smaller zombies advance hungrily in his direction. Even in an extremely unfavorable position, the young man maintains his focus and calmness, looking for a way out of the danger. With a quick twist of his body, he cuts the root holding him and eliminates the surrounding monsters in a perfect motion. He lands on his knees and admits that if he keeps backing up and letting them corner him, his end will be inevitable. The young man spots a glowing power generator in the back and decides to take the initiative to make a very fast advance. As he focuses his gaze on the electrical panel, he realizes there is still a large amount of active power in that spot. He notices that the nest is using the dirty water and those roots like actual blood vessels to feed itself. He decides to sabotage the contamination channels and use that very network of the nest's own vessels to destroy it. The young man taunts the bizarre monster and leaps toward the live electrical cables glowing on the wall. The nest's flesh vines attack fiercely, believing they have finally cornered the intruder. But the hero grabs the live electrical cable and drives the high-voltage wiring right into the heart of the nest's roots. With determination, the youth discharges all the electricity into the wiring, asserting that it is time to end this. A gigantic electrical current is released, illuminating the entire underground room with intense blue lightning. The electricity flows through all the monster's veins, spreading the voltage through every single branch in the location. From afar, the zombies connected to that network begin to scream and burn from the violent energy discharge. The terrible voltage travels through the contaminated water, instantly destroying all the undead in the corridor. The immense organic nest cannot withstand the energy overload and begins to completely tear apart into pieces. With the explosion of the flesh shell, the nest's true glowing core finally becomes visible and exposed. The protagonist smiles victoriously and readies his sharp sword to deliver the final attack against the large core. With a battle cry, he charges at maximum speed, delivering a devastating and fatal strike against the crystal. The sharp blade cuts the weak point in half, causing the entire organic structure to begin collapsing. The final discharge of electricity travels through the entire ruined building, making the structures shake considerably. That entire mass of red flesh begins to disintegrate and vanish in the form of small blue particles. The game system confirms the mission's success, congratulating the hunter for clearing that difficult dungeon. 3 mysterious treasure chests appear floating in the air, glowing with a purple aura full of valuable prizes. The hero shows great generosity and asks his 2 surviving companions to choose their prizes first. He decides to hide the fact that he can choose his prizes while his partner thanks him emotionally for the victory. The system alerts that everyone must leave the area immediately right after collecting their respective rewards. Intimidated by Taku's imposing presence, the other hunter decides to take only a smaller, simpler chest. He admits with a laugh that lower-level rewards suit his actual combat ability much better. The protagonist smiles at the modesty of the two and decides to take the dungeon's primary treasure for himself. The system announces that as the first to clear level 5, he can exchange common prizes for hidden ones. Various legendary and rare equipment cards begin to appear floating around him, glowing with magic. The young warrior selects an incredible legendary sacred weapon, and the system allows him to choose 2 more items. Next, he decides to place the other 2 rare support items into the exchange option for secret prizes. The young man reflects that even if he cannot use the items, selling them will be enough to settle all his debts. He hopes to get the unique skills of the Zombie King or the Nest, which would be extremely broken for him. The system panel glows intensely, confirming the acquisition of a new secret combat skill. The hero unlocks the shared vision skill, which allows him to view the battlefield through others. He also acquires the incredible behavioral control technique, which serves to manipulate the opponent's actions. The warrior is left surprised and mouth agape upon analyzing the absurd stats and effects of the 2 new techniques. He finds it very suspicious, as the system released the exact techniques he had just mentally wished for. Taku suspects that the prizes were customized on the spot just to meet his specific combat needs. He looks around startled, wondering if some secret entity has been watching him throughout the entire mission. His eyes focus with suspicion on a strange mark he notices on the side of one of the metal boxes. He approaches a large cargo container that has been broken open, with organic residues leaking through its doors. On the side of the metal box is drawn the symbol of a secret organization, represented by a large eye. The young man remembers that mist creatures never spawn naturally in dungeons, deducing that the nest was brought in by humans. He begins to reason that both the local monsters and the hidden rewards seem to be under external control. The young man asks himself in shock if there really is someone behind the scenes manipulating the entire game system. He faces the terrible possibility that even the mysterious mist might have been created artificially. With a valuable clue in hand, the youth vows that he will investigate and drag the entire dark truth into the light of day. He knows there are dangerous people controlling things from the shadows and celebrates having found his first lead. So the system panel confirms that the hero gained a massive amount of experience, rising 2 power levels consecutively. The updated status board is displayed, showing the new level 4 status of warrior Hozaki Soshi, along with his new items. He celebrates the rapid evolution, remembering that gaining 2 levels all at once is an extremely rare occurrence. He puts the legendary weapon up for auction on the app and smiles as he watches the buyer's bids climb every second. The transaction is concluded successfully, and the app confirms the sale of the legendary weapon for an astronomical value. He celebrates his new level 4 and the 2 new broken skills that will serve as trump cards in future combats. The young man walks over to the commercial trade center, seeking to finalize the delivery negotiations for his auctioned item. He hands the sacred weapon over to the official buyer, and the system confirms a final balance of over 5 million. The elegant man in a hat comments in surprise upon noticing that the seller of that rare weapon is merely a beginner warrior. Taku notices the wealthy man's analytical gaze and understands that he set up the meeting in person just to investigate him. The buyer states with suspicion that a weak warrior like him should never be capable of obtaining such a triple S treasure. Without showing any concern or fear, the young man coldly replies back that that is none of his business. Next, he turns his back on the group and begins walking down the dark alley stairwell to leave the place for good. He uses most of the money to clear his debt and notices through a reflection that security guards are tailing him. The hero smirks as he confirms his suspicion that those amateur thugs are trying to follow him in silence. The two guards rush forward through the alley, trying not to lose sight of the youth in the blue hood amidst the turns. Upon rounding the corner quickly, the pursuers are left in absolute shock to realize that he vanished without a trace. From above, the protagonist observes the foolishness of the two men and finds it ridiculous that they sent amateurs to watch him. He reflects that selling expensive items while being just a beginner hunter draws a lot of unwanted attention from criminals. The young man spots a massive recruit billboard for the official agency and recognizes a great cover opportunity there. He plans to join the official bureau so that no one suspects his weapons and to gain access to their mapped dungeons. He steps into the bustling main lobby of the association, ready to begin the official enlistment process. The youth heads to the front desk and asks about the process, while the receptionist asks him to fill out the form. Upon analyzing the file, the staff members notice that the candidate is merely a newly arrived level 4 warrior. The other veteran warriors on the scene begin to laugh and mock the protagonist's extremely low level. A man with glasses and a beard of authority appears, ordering everyone to quiet down to understand the cause of all that commotion. The chief says rudely that he doesn't want to waste time on dead weight and warns that the bureau already has plenty of experienced warriors. So she smiles boldly and responds that this type of arrogance and complacency usually commands a very high price later on. He surprises everyone by revealing with absolute certainty that a mist outbreak will hit the central plaza this very day. The chief rants angrily, telling the young man to stop talking nonsense, while the youth reacts in a very calm manner. He says goodbye with a wave and tells them to call him when the alarm sounds, provided they offer him a much better payment. The man with glasses watches the young man leave irritably, grumbling and complaining about the boy's daring attitude. The young man sits near the plaza's fountain and focuses on Cross, referencing all historical data on previous mist outbreaks. He notices that small, suspicious mist outbreaks have been consistently appearing in public and highly populated locations. Meanwhile, the larger-scale invasions occur strategically close to known official dungeons. Analyzing the map, he notes that the outbreak zones have been closing in like rings toward the absolute center of the city. He concludes his calculations and realizes with precision that the next dangerous invasion will occur exactly in the plaza today. Moments later, the bureau's red alarms begin to wail, confirming the arrival of the new mist threat. The chief slams his fist on the table in anger, realizing that the young warrior's daring prediction was completely correct. Sitting on the plaza bench, the hero flashes a winning smile, knowing that his plan worked out with perfect mastery. A massive dark smoke of energy explodes in the center of the plaza, spreading total panic among the fleeing people. The young man walks confidently through the chaos, asserting that he will now secure a very well-paying employment contract.